Welcome back to day two of New Zealand cycling in New Zealand. Yeah, sorry, just getting the camera adjusted. Um, yeah, so I left off yesterday after day one. I spent the night in Havelock, and this I think you guys are going to find this interesting. Talking about how New Zealand is different than America, and of course, I don't mean to say that the entire audience here are only Americans. That's hopefully not the case. But you talk about New Zealand is a population of about 4 million people, and the South Island in particular, which is my favorite part of the country. Shh, don't tell the people on the North Island. No, Wellington's nice, but I really do love the South Island. It only has 1 million people, the entire island, and it's not a small place. I mean, there's some distance in there, and basically we're entering a period of the South Island where there's really not a lot of population. I think between Christchurch and Dunedin, the two large cities on the east coast of the South Island, it's probably about a third of the population, and the rest of the island is, yeah, it's pretty a lot of wide open space. Anyways, but my point is Havelock. When I say town, town is basically there was really only one main street. It may have only been a few hundred people, maybe 1,000 people. One or a couple of restaurants, a very very small store, and that's common in New Zealand. If you're cycling around, or if you're traveling in New Zealand anyway, you're gonna any way you're gonna see a lot of small towns. I liked it though. For me, one of the big advantages of New Zealand is and especially the South Island, is such a low stress environment, and you can kind of reconnect with nature, or if you're in a high stress situation. Like I had a very I was kind of in a high stress situation in my last job. It was just really great to kind of really be in that opposite end of a very low stress experience. Um, anyway, so the first picture that we're looking at here, this is actually after I just left Havelock and start to go into um, some small mountains, and then you can kind of see what it looks like on the open road with the mountains in the distance. Oh yeah, funny story, and I forgot to mention this. When I was cycling into Havelock, I had my first experience of just falling over. So when you're clipped in your cycle shoes, it's kind of an unusual thing, and it's not something you normally do in life unless you're cycling, basically in this kind of cycling. And I entered the town and I didn't unclip. So when you stop on a bicycle, you need to unclip before to put a leg down. And I didn't do that because you sort of forget that you're clipped in, and I just fell straight over. Yeah. And then a car stopped. Oh, you're right. Like, yeah, I'm fine. My shoulder was scraped up a little bit. But yeah, that happens. I mean, what can you say? Anyway, so I left the next morning, kind of got up a bit early. I think I left probably about 8 a.m. and sort of hit the open road. And a really beautiful road, kind of going through some hills, going through some mountains. Went through this area called the Rhine Valley area. If I remember correctly, man, it was really beautiful. You're seeing some of the pictures here, and yeah, it's kind of just going through it. That's actually the day, but it's sort of because there's such high tree cover. Sometimes it looks a bit dark. And then when I arrived sort of just outside Nelson, I had used this website called warmshowers.com, and I'm going to put a link in the about description of this video so you can go there and check it out. If you're familiar with couch surfing, you'll immediately get the idea. But basically, warmshowers.com is an online community for cyclists, but really people that are traveling by their bicycle on a cycle tour, and they may give you a room. They may give you a place to put up a tent. In my situation, what you see here is I had my tent. He's like, oh, well, you can just sleep in the camper van if you want. That way you don't have to worry about putting up the tent. So yeah, I slept in that camper van that night with my sleeping bag. It's winter there, so it gets cold at night. But I had a negative 10, or I think my sleeping bag's rated to negative 10 or negative 20 Celsius. Sorry, overseas and not America countries, they use Celsius, but basically it can handle below freezing. So I never got cold at nights in that sleeping bag. That was a really Really great investment. And then I actually stayed that night just outside of Nelson. Nelson is basically, if you're looking at the South Island, it's in the very north central, and it's the largest town sort of in that area. Um, I mean, maybe in a city, but it's 30,000 people, so it's still a small place. I liked it. I think I stayed there 2 or 3 nights. Um, what did I do? Let's see that they had a pretty cool local provincial museum. Um, I actually that's still on the way to Nelson, and then this here is the beach. This is the beach in Nelson. So yeah, I had an old flatmate who had moved there. So when I lived in New Zealand in 2009, she had moved to Nelson. So I went and visited with her one day. Um, yeah, I kind of spent some time walking around at the beach. Yay, that's me at the beach taking a picture of myself. And supposedly, now there was a bit of a debate on this when I was there, but it says that Nelson and this hill where I'm taking this picture from, you can see Nelson right there. But it says that this point on this hill, just well, I guess it's still in Nelson, is the exact middle point of New Zealand. That being the case, I really felt I had no choice but to climb up there and take a picture, which I did, and there it is. Now I met some other person like, yeah, it's not the truth, middle points, it's all employed, blah 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 blah. I don't know whether or not it's the exact middle point or not. On the map, it looks like it's more or less in the middle, and it's a cool kind of cool park, interesting park, and you can kind of do a casual, probably about a 30 to 40 minute walk up to the top. Um, I spent 2 nights or 3 nights in Nelson as a backpackers, and so here I'll just take a moment to tell you about really the third type of lodging. So the first night tent, second night using warmshowers.com, staying in that guy's camper van. Third night in New Zealand they're called backpackers. If you've traveled in Europe, they're called hostels. In America too, I suppose they're called hostels. And basically, you stay in a shared room with anywhere between a few to 5 or 6 or 7 other people. I was actually in New Zealand for the low season, so generally I was only in a room with about 2 other people. Some people think that's really weird to basically stay in a hostel and be in a room with other people that you don't know. I mean, for me, I mean, basically, been in 30 countries and lived overseas for 8 years. I am really used to it, and it's pretty good value. I think, generally a night's about $15, $16. Plus, you have, at least in New Zealand, you always have the use of a kitchen and like a living room type area. So it's just, I mean, for me, it's just a lot more comfortable and a lot more cost effective. I, of course, was on a budget. Yeah, to stay in hostels, and you have the other benefit, you can meet other people, maybe other New Zealanders or other tourists, and for like I was traveling alone. Like I said, I do have friends in New Zealand. I stay with them in Wellington, and when I got to Dunedin later on at the end of the trip, I'll stay with them, and then back in Wellington. But actually, when I was cycling by myself. It was just I think it's kind of that good balance, because on the open road when you're just cycling, I was all alone and I had plenty of alone time to think. And then when you're in backpackers there in New Zealand, people are really friendly. It's very much a travel destination, so it's really easy to meet people and to have a good time. So that's actually day 2, was really cycling to Nelson almost all the way. And then day 3, I finally actually cycled the last 10 miles to the city, and then I spent 2 nights. 2 nights in Nelson. So that's days 2, 3, and 4. Okay, this has been the second edition of Charles Cycling Through New Zealand.